All right, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Brenda Williams, founder of Culture Shifters Unite and the Brenda Williams Show and the podcast Soul of a Lead Her for She Who Lives and Works from the Soul. And I am so excited to be joined not just with a client, but I would say a sister, um, a friend, someone who has joined me, sadly, in the club of those who have a parent, particularly a mother who passes away, but still has to show up in the big ways, right? Still has to show up in business, still has to show up for friends, still has to show up for family. And in her world, as a person who is in an evolutionary pathway, right? So going from HR and HR background with policies and procedures, but just also remembering that HR is the heart of an organization. It is literally, quite literally, is the heart of an organization. It's the place where people come and in many cases divulge things that are tender, that are vulnerable and need support in navigating that in a professional setting. And so we have to also deconstruct what it means to be a business, what it means to be professional, because it has a whole cultural nuance, right, to it, and in the ways in which that we move. And what I was so moved, I'm always moved by the Scorpio here, because Scorpio is all about passion and feeling and sensuality and texture and vibrancy. What I was really moved about when we talked about, why she said yes to this program, why she said yes to the aligned year and sponsoring my media initiative, is because she said she needed to do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
That she needed a place to be her full self. And we have to also honor the full lived experience of Black women.
Yes.
So, sis here is not only a brilliant strategist and, human coordinator, but is moving into a deeper evolution of her own work, where her spiritual gifts are coming forward more beautifully, where her time is becoming even more sacred and intentionality. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to you all Otisa Eads, who is living and daring bravely and moving into the next evolution of her own soul's unfoldment. So, Otissa, welcome. So happy to have you here.
I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Brenda. You are incredible.
Girl, listen, right? It takes one to know one. In every sense of the word, it takes one to know one. So we'll just jump right into it. I believe that your story, well, of course, is uniquely yours. I really hope that to those who are listening, it serves as a piece of not only cautionary tale, but also inspiration
Mm-hmm.
to be able to speak up and advocate, because we understand that when we do that, for many times it can be punitive as a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
It can have some real ramifications. But you stepped out on faith in starting your own business. And so we would just want to go back to, what was your clock strikes 12 and I can't do this anymore moment when you started your.
Ooh. Yeah, I think for me, I came from the catering world, the hospitality world, and I became an HR manager quickly, but it all made sense with my degree at the time. And so I was excited. But what I learned about the catering space is it's unpredictable. And so there were seasons where we were having high volume, and then when their seasons were low, HR got cut. And that was like hard to always deal with. And I said, okay, well, clearly, even though it's supposed to be my stable job and income, it's not stable. So I'm going to have to create something for myself. And so I started doing that, and started working with folks and just saying, hey, how can I help you in your business? How can I help figure it out? And I would just do different tasks and projects. And it took the pandemic for me to realize like there's more to this. It's more to this than just some extra income. You are doing some cool work and helping these entrepreneurs, helping these business owners, but let's take it a step further. And now you had no choice but to look at that and figuring out, okay, well, I do HR and operations, and I do this, and I facilitate. Okay, how can I support nonprofits, which was amazing of a transition. But I wasn't going out saying I'm going to help nonprofits. Nonprofits found me, and they were like, please, can you help us with your skill set? And it all made sense because I love working with nonprofits. I love my small businesses, I do, but I also love my nonprofits because I can experiment with different ways of working, because as we all know, the workplace is changing, the work environment is changing, how we look at productivity is changing. So I get to experiment and play with how we go about these topics with my clients. And I think it would have been more challenging to do that in a more corporate small business standpoint. Whereas with nonprofits, they care about their mission and their community and
Mhm.
what is best going to serve them. And that might mean changing things internally.
Ooh, I love that when you talk about internal change and sort of the variance between a for profit and a nonprofit, but also when we think about nonprofits specifically that have founders and executive directors who are part of the BIPOC community.
Yes.
So, if you can even dive into that about full identity and leadership. So, a as a Black woman, in these United States in HR, what are some things that we really need to consider to make our spaces? And I love this word. I learned this word a few days ago in facilitation, that we can't guarantee a safe space, but how can
Hmm.
we guarantee a brave space?
Yeah, that is so beautiful and divinely timed because I was literally talking with clients last week during a training around culture. And we did these exercises before with my colleague around changing their culture statements. And the word safety came up. And there was this moment of like, well, we cannot guarantee a safe place for everyone that works here, but we can strive for it. And they also talked about the word brave. So that's amazing how you just brought this up. And I think that what we have to remember as Black and brown leaders, we have different challenges than our white counterparts. First off, just us being there and existing is already a threat. And we have to navigate that world in a leadership role where we have to be compassionate, we have to be understanding, we have to be patient, but at the same time we have to direct lead and move the needle forward to where we're trying to head the organization or our team. And it is I've started telling my clients and my colleagues to start sharing that experience with people and say, as a Black woman, this is how I have to navigate the world and this is what I'm experiencing. So I'm letting you know how I'm entering into space. Or, hey, I'm noticing that you're getting defensive when I'm giving you feedback. Let me explain to you how I have to operate in every room I go into when I bring forth ideas because I get shut down just existing. And I know that makes people uncomfortable, but we have to name the thing so we can get to what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes total sense because context matters. And I love that you're naming, and I really want people who are watching this either live or in the replay to understand, especially in a leadership capacity. The minute that someone like Otissa or myself walks into a room, there are already a bevy of assumptions that are blaring in a person's head or in their psyche, in their mind, around who we are, and our leadership before we even open our mouths is already being contested. From where were we educated, right? And let's not add the layer, if we were educated at an HBCU, there's already a bias that goes up. Both of us have very unique names. So even the
Yep.
pronunciation, right, of our names. And it might sound like a small thing to some, but it is a huge thing to be able to pronounce someone's name correctly and not jump to, can I call you something else?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a shorter name or do you have a nickname? Brenda is my preferred name. I'm sure, Atissa, I don't want to speak for you, but that
Mm-hmm.
in a professional context, you
Yes.
haven't earned the right to call me anything other than my given name. So right, so we're already right before we even open our mouths. at a certain position in one's head. And so, yes, when you have to do a review, or you're calling someone in because you are the authority in the position, sometimes that authority, while it would be naturally given to a cisgen, hetero, white, middle-aged male, we oftentimes have to prove our legitimacy in the roles that we occupy.
Yes.
So I love that you are naming all of this and still hold empathy and
Yes.
compassion and hold direct and real boundaries.
Yes.
To see you over here just preaching a whole word. Oh my goodness. If you could just share with our audience, and you named it, about the lived experience and holding, both, what I'm seeing, an evolution in the need for, particularly when we talk about things like white feminism, which often leans heavier on the patriarchy and not the other
Hmm.
parts that threaten one's identity. Even when you are working with white women, right? And when we talk about affirmative action and a lot of those things that are being eroded, white women have definitely benefited from affirmative action. How can we then dismantle this whole the just the whole white supremacist delusion, right? Because there's so much that goes into it. But what are some of the ways that you've been able to navigate and instructed maybe even some of your clients and some of the organizations that you've been called into to really help them understand the totality of what oppression has done, to the oppressed, but also maybe in the ways it shows up for the oppressor?
Yes. Well, first off, I'm grateful that I have amazing colleagues who are amazing Jedi and DEIJ consultants. 'Cause I tell them when I do retreats, when I do workshops, I am not a DEIJ facilitator because I don't have patience. And I need to bring someone with me who has the best patience ever when it comes to having these conversations and topics. Because I think where I struggle is my job is not to educate you on all of this because it's available to you. But I also recommend my favorite books, Weapons of Whiteness, Black Fatigue. Like there's a lot of books out there where folks can read and learn more because that's not my role. But I also try to make sure that we understand those those symptoms of white supremacy, those symptoms of oppression that show up in the workplace, like perfectionism, sense of urgency, all these different things that show up in the workplace all the time. Worship of the written word, right? How is that showing up and flaring up in the workplace? And also, what is the root and need of this that's happening that could be causing conflict, misunderstanding? Um, I joke with my colleagues. I used to do a training called Fostering an Inclusive Work Environment, and creating a toolkit and strategies for navigating difficult conversations. And I loved this workshop at the time, but I kept having this problem at the end of each workshop. Usually, a white woman would come up to me and ask me for a PDF of what to say, of things to say, and statements to say, and I understand what they're asking, but I also had to remind them of there's no playbook for me to navigate microaggressions in the workplace. There's no playbook for me when I'm in a situation that someone doubts my expertise because of the body that I happen to have. So no, I am not going to create a infographic of statements for you to practice when you're in a difficult conversation. You have to just live your life and get comfortable being uncomfortable and saying the thing, or correcting yourself, or saying, hey, I'm talking messy and please correct me if I am wrong. That's the only way we're going to navigate this. So I try my best to share those examples with my clients. I have my colleagues that do work with me to share their lived experiences with our clients so they understand that this is not just a theory. This isn't just a thing that you see on social media. This is happening to me too and to other folks. So let's educate by just sharing our experiences and how these impact us in everyday life. That's the only way I think we're going to navigate it, and to get people to kind of wake up and realize that it's not special cases. This is all of the time.
Mm. Oh, woo! So, I mean, let's just really peel some of these layers back, because I think that it's super important to name what you're speaking about, in that the infographics, or basically, a mad lib through my discomfort, What do I need to say so that when I'm in position, um, I'm not feeling uncomfortable so that I don't make the mistake. And I think that goes back to what you said earlier about perfection and perfectionism being a tool of white supremacy that even the oppressor suffers under. So you are not comfortable. You want to mitigate your discomfort, whereas you or I have been forged in discomfort. You and
Yes.
I have been and I believe that our parents had the best intentions in raising us with this, even to me, this detrimental notion that you have to be 3 times better than your white counterpart. You have to be
Mhm.
smarter, faster, quicker, whatever, because we understand that this idea of competition,
Mhm.
this idea of navigation requires more of us than it does our counterparts. And so mediocrity from them is okay.
Mhm.
But anything less than excellence from us, and I think that it does eradicate psychologically, psychically, emotionally our personhood if we think that the bar, though not really that high, but the bar is set at a particular place. And so then for a white woman to come to you in her lived experience saying, okay, yes, I'm to a certain degree, yes, I get marginal, at the margins, but uh, when I am confronted with an opportunity to grow, I want to become more comfortable. And so I want to put
Mhm.
emotional labor on you, who is the recipient of the oppression, the recipient of ill treatment and bad behavior. I want you to work more because, well, you're in the professional capacity. Or sometimes what I've noticed too is that it's automatically assumed that
Mhm.
Jedi DER, because we
Yep.
are people of color, that's
Yep.
our work in the world. And it's like, no, I don't want to. No, that's not what I want to be doing. I mean, I want to frolic. That's what
Yes.
I want to
That's what I
frolic.
want to do.
And play and run to my beloved in slow motion, like in the movies. Like I want that. I want a rom com life. You know what I'm saying? I have come to realize I want to live a rom com. Like
Rom-coms are the best.
okay, so why I can't be what's her name, Gwyneth Paltrow or Reese Witherspoon? I want it. I want it too.
Yes.
Right. I want I think when we say things, it's not just a catchphrase.
No.
A soft life, and I want that for all of you. You and the
Yes.
rest of my Black women clients to have that softer life without creating the infographic and, like you said, the talking points to move you through the discomfort. Because quite honestly, um, school of hard knocks is sometimes where we have to go.
Yes. How else do we grow?
But in discomfort, I don't know that it's comfortable for a seed to break its shell, or for trees to sprout their roots, or for a mother to give birth. There is nothing comfortable about any of those experiences, but yet they are necessary.
Yes.
And here we are. So, Otissa, I want to also ask you this: when we talk about the ways in which that you have discovered that business for you personally, as a Black woman, as a HR generalist, moving into specialist, moving into public speaker, moving into facilitator, and all of these iterations of your own soul's growth and evolution, when did it occur to you that you had to do business differently?
Ooh. I think I always kind of knew it, but I didn't lean into it until a few years ago. That's how I found you, because I was realizing that a friend reminds me, she's in the creative space, and we always joke and we're serious about how our business is spiritual, and that some folks might hear that and get a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's fine. But for me, it was born from a place of alignment with the way I see the workplace becoming. Because when I first started working at that catering company, I was a front desk coordinator. And I used to play music all the time. Stay with, I know it's a weird story, but I used to play music all of the time. And one day I had like a colleague come up to me and say, since you've gotten here, there's more light and warmth here. And that really just brought me so much joy, but it also gave me a little sadness that it took just simple things to add that warmth and add that light to the work environment. And I think ever since then, I feel like it's been my calling to do that. I think that I'm moving in a space where I want to do that in a variety of ways, in different ways. And so I realized, well, then I have to go about business differently. I have to look at how I show up in my business differently. What does that require of me? And so, and I also think as a Black woman, I can't do business the same way as our white counterparts. I just can't. I have to look at things a whole lot differently. I have to look at my health very differently because it affects my business. If I don't take care of my body, then I can't really show up in my business. So that means I have to look at everything about the business completely differently than how it was taught to me in the beginning. Just from sales to marketing to strategic planning. How I tell my clients what I'm doing with you all is what I do for myself. I wouldn't do anything with any of my clients that I have not tried experimented for myself. So I always tell my clients I take my own medicine. So I work
Mhm.
with a coach. That's why I work with you and I do your programs because it's aligned with how I want to show up in my business and how I want to continue to remind folks that you don't have it's not cookie cutter. You don't have to follow the same framework that everyone follows. Sometimes you have to create your own. And so that's why I realized that I have to do business differently and I have to show up that's more aligned with my calling. And so that means looking at everything from a different lens.
And speaking of alignment, you said yes to the aligned year. You said yes to your own intuitive gifts unfolding. In what ways do you use, some of the practices that we talk about, like seasonal planning, leaning into your intuition and understanding how, your own clairs, show up? How has that, when you have divested from maybe traditional business practices and moved into Otisa best practices, how has that shown up for you and has ultimately been a blessing for you?
Yeah, I love the seasonal planning. And I realized that I have to look at the year in season. So we're in summer. So that's busy. That's social time. That's networking. And I honor it, even though that I'm a little bit of an introvert, so it's a challenge in a different way. But I still remind myself that this is the season that requires this version of you. So let's show up and do it. But what does that mean in terms of filling your cup? That means we have to block out time to just not be around people, which is okay because my business is relational. So that means I need some sacred time for just me. So how do I budget that in my calendar? And then I love winter time and I have a winter sabbatical. My colleagues know, my friends know that I have a winter sabbatical that I take a month off and I just be. And I figure out how to make sure that works so clients are supported and things do get done, but I have to have a winter sabbatical to just be in winter. And be. And I think that sometimes that throws people off. And I always joke, I'm like, but I'm in Colorado, so it's cold. It's freezing.
Mhm.
And so I joke and I'm like, well, you want to operate in the summer season as if you're out there doing everything, but the weather is literally reflecting winter. So I'm gonna go hibernate. I need time to hibernate, and that's cool. So I try to remind folks that I do try to operate according to the seasons, literally and then figuratively with my business because it works. It really does work and mean a big deal for me and how I plan and how I do things and how I show up, and creating those boundaries for myself. And then
Mhm.
another thing too that I have been loving is just listening to my intuition a little bit more, and that's a muscle that I'm learning from you on how to lean into that better. And sometimes I do this thing where I want to talk it out with like all my friends, and I'm like, okay, but what was that first ping that you got, that you listened, that you heard, and you felt in your body? Just go with it, and it's
Mhm.
okay to just go with it. You know what's best for you. Listen and then take action. Don't just talk it through and overthink and overwhelm myself. That was
Yeah,
unnecessary, right?
so much so. And I think that you name something really important. And unfortunately, the speaking of the ping, you name something just really important about trusting what you feel. And our culture so much tells us to ignore feelings and follow logic. And I love how you frame that you're leaning into it more. So, what have you learned that, and not saying that we want to discredit logic, it's definitely a both
Mhm.
and.
Yes.
If you could just name for folks, especially our empaths, our highly sensitive, people, the people that understand how intuition works, what have been some of the benefits where you're just like, oh my gosh, I have learned a very valuable lesson of maybe not listening to it, but also a very valuable lesson in to listening to it.
Oh, that's a great question. I would say, um, I will say things like if I have a conversation coming up, or I have it may be more challenging of a discussion I may have to have with a client or a colleague or anyone, I will just always say, like, give me the words to express what I need to express and to be received with love. Like, I'll just say something like that and then get on the call and the call goes well. And I'm like, oh, okay. Or I will have a situation where I might have this I believe it's all in the body and listening to what your body is trying to tell you. So sometimes I might have this kind of, it feels like a tummy ache, but it's not a tummy ache. I don't know if that makes sense, Brenda. You're the expert here. And so I might have this like feeling of like, oh, I really want to reach out to this client and tell them this, or I really want to check on this client, but I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's doing too much, and then I won't do it. And then something will happen where I realize later that there's a reason why you wanted to reach out, and so I have learned just do the thing. If you say the thing, like I had a one client, I was like, "Hey, can we have a heart to heart? Can we just talk on the phone and just talk this thing through together?" And it worked out very, very well, and it was very well received. So I am practicing it and learning it, but I'm also doing this in my personal life too. And my dear friends would totally, if they were here, they would chime in, and I'll just say, "Hey, there's something I want to tell you. I don't know if this makes sense. Is it okay if we talk about this?" And then of course they're like, "Wow, that was so well. Like, thank you for sharing that, Otissa." So I'm learning this to trust. I may not always understand why I'm getting this feeling, or I may not understand where it's coming from, but to
Mhm.
just say the thing, do the thing. I can always course correct if I need to.
Right.
But so far it hasn't turned me in the wrong path. It's only helped to lean in and trust.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's a thing. It's real. I do believe that spirit has endowed us with this ability to use, and I feel like in the next evolution of our human um, unfoldment, that we are going to be leaning into other faculties. And hearing you speak reminds me of what the tools are. Like, Audre Lorde quote the quote that says, "The master's tools will never destroy the master's house." And I've been trying to figure out, like, well, if we're not going to use the tools, of the master, obviously, to help disintegrate, the house that the master built, then what tools will we use? And you are naming them. We will use intuition. We will use our words. We will use creativity. We will create community. These will be the tools that are anti-oppressor, that are really, I believe, indigenous to us. And really, most BIPOC people have a sense of family, extended family, community, um, word choice. I mean, the griot tradition, right? Storytelling traditions. These are all part of our bloodline, part of our ancestral lineage, to really lean into this. Our big mamas and our aunties and our mothers always taught us things about go with your first mind, or I had an unction, to use the words of our grandmothers, to do something, to say something, to be something. And those acts of bravery, I believe, has led us thus far on the pathway of liberation. And so, Otissa, I mean, of course, I could talk to you all day, girl. You are just full of just so much warmth, love, wisdom. I would say fierce compassion and love. But what's one thing, for those who are under the sound of our voice, whether in real time or in the replay, about saying yes to the aligned year, and also, sowing a financial seed into the life and cause uh, of another Black woman.
Yes. Well, I feel like what I love about the aligned year is that it is a chance for you to have more community with other women who are doing incredible things, but also to have that sense of, we talk about accountability a lot, and I get tired of that word, but I feel like in business, it is lonely in different ways. Even if you have a community or you have colleagues, but you can still feel alone if you run a business by yourself. And so it's nice to have a place where I don't feel like that at all. I feel welcomed, and all of me is welcomed, and that we're looking at things differently and we're showing up in a way. And I love the seasonal planning because it goes hand in hand with how I like to look at planning in general. But
Mm.
also the community that you fostered with everyone coming together and talking those things through. What are those challenges, and that we're in it together. And so that's what I love. And also, as a Black woman in business, try to support as much as I can other Black women in business, because that's how we are going to survive and make it, is with one another. And that can look like a lot of different ways, but definitely supporting what you are doing is important for what I'm trying to do in my business. And so I could say so many things, but that's something that I'm really, really enjoying. And I love that you have the intuitive readings as part of the program. I was telling a friend, I was like, oh, I was with my business coach, but it's kind of like an intuitive business coach, but it is the coolest thing I've ever experienced today. And so I love that you are putting that in the program. And I think it's beautiful how you've spaced it out on a quarterly basis as well to make it easier for scheduling. So I'm just happy that I'm here, and anyone listening, come on and join, because it is a great experience that you won't regret.
Mm. I mean, it beyond warms my heart to hear, but love seeing the manifestation of it, seeing your growth, seeing, where you're beautifully, expanding, and some of the things that you said that you wanted to do, like seeing it like come into fruition, like you spoke it, but also, followed your own intuition. And in such a tender time, Atissa and I both are, have recently experienced the loss of a parent. And I will definitely say grief shows you exactly what you can and what you cannot carry. And I think that when you learn what you can and what you cannot carry, what you can carry emerges and it shows you what is a priority and what is
Yes.
not, who is a priority and who is not. And so you, as an empath, definitely have to be very intentional about your energy because it is finite, or it is not finite. Like you don't have a finite amount of energy to spend. Some people get energized by being around people, and for us, it's kind of like, no, I gotta go home. I gotta scrub. I gotta cleanse myself because it's too much. Peopling is like, ooh, I gotta put on my peopling face. Like, I don't know, or it's like, yeah, I can't. I'm busy. I can't go. And busy, I can't go means that you have your bonnet on and bra off. You can ready to go to bed. So like,
Exactly.
that's what we mean that I'm busy. Like, girl, you ain't doing nothing. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Get off.
Doing nothing is something. It really is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I love the way that you have, I think landed us so beautifully. So please, Atissa is definitely one of our sponsors. So you'll be learning more about her business. We definitely have links to find her on social, to find her website, and to hire her. So if you are looking to understand how to create a more equitable space, but also from a standpoint of the um, the human the human side of it. While she does not do DEI correctly, she can definitely make sure that you don't get filed with an EEOC claim. She can definitely help you with that if you're looking to just from the ground up. So I think if we think of justice first, and we don't have to come back and apologize later. So if you let justice lead, then you're not having to go back and do as much repair. Of course, again, we say we can't guarantee a safe space, but I think if we have it at the forefront, and
Yes.
then the work that you do, you can definitely help businesses understand what's at stake if you don't have certain mechanisms in
Yes.
place, if you don't have
Yes.
certain policies in place. And I want to shout out Channy Nichols. Anybody follows Channy Nichols? Channy has, I think, a beautiful way business model that everyone one starts out at 80K a year. So like that's bare minimum. Like
Yes.
that's entry level. But mental health You can take mental health breaks, and that's not just part of PTO. Like that's just kind of ingrained in it.
Yes, it is.
No matter what your gender is, there's parental leave. And I just love, again, kind of like the standard that Channy is setting. And I know that Otissa takes mental health very seriously,
Yes.
family time very serious. So she can help you create and cultivate policies and procedures that honor the whole person. So please go check her out and definitely hire her to come in and do a retreat for your staff, maybe for your C-suite team or for your leadership team. And if you're in the nonprofit, world, I know you all wear many hats. She is definitely an expert. She has years of expertise in the area. So please, I can't say this enough, stress this enough. Please hire her. Bring her in, bring her brain trust in, and don't do the "can I pick your brain" in her consult, and no scope creep. Pay her. Did
Thank
you
you.
pay a black woman today? Is one of the I follow this woman on LinkedIn, and she said, "Did you pay?" That's her catchphrase. She's like, "Did you pay a black woman today?" Well, guess what? Today is a good day. 710 is a great day for you to pay a black woman. So pay Otissa, her worth, and she will not steer you wrong. So I am so grateful to you, Otissa, for all that you bring and all that you are.
Thank you. Do you know how I feel about you? You are incredible, doing incredible things, my dear. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So, again, if you're seeing this in real time or on the replays, please share this with someone. And if the aligned year, you're curious about it, intrigued by it, well, what does that mean? Intuitive readings. I'm hearing seasonal planning. What is that? But I'm feeling that my intuition has to lead more of the discussion in my mental chatter and in my strategy. Hit me up and we can definitely have a talk about it. So Otissa, thanks again for being so supportive to me and to my community and helping us to reach and touch more women and femmes in business and in leadership. You have sown a seed that helps to move the mission forward. So thank you again so much. So thank y'all for tuning in. You have a beautiful rest of your day and happy Friday Eve, friend.
Bye. Thank
And
you.
thank y'all for tuning in. All right.